Hi everyone, welcome back to the third and final episode of Procedural Tree with Geometry Nodes tutorial. In previous episodes, I've created a configurable tree trunk, instance branches and twigs that can be configured from separate geometry nodes, and all that works with tree growing settings. In this episode, I'm going to finalize this project by adding leaves and materials, so let's go. For the leaves, I'm going to do a bit of modeling, so I will go to the default layout. I'll create a new collection in assets called leaves and add a plane object to the scene. I'll enable Screencast Keys add-on to display what keys are being used during this process. So after renaming this plane to Leaf 1, I will rescale it to a more reasonable size. I'll bring back the tree to see if the size of the leaf fits well and adjust it more. That looks quite right. Now I'll switch to Edit mode and add a few loop cuts to the plane. I'll enable proportional editing and scale the top edge of the plane to the thinnest as possible. I'll use the mouse scroll to resize the area to affect other edges. Now I'll do the same thing to the bottom of the plane. I'll make slight scaling changes to different edges until I get a desired leaf shape. I'll add another loop cut in the center here and move some of the selected edges down on Z-axis. I can also rotate the top edges, still with proportional editing enabled, and continue moving edges until I'm happy with the leaf shape. I will select the bottom edges and extrude them to create a stem for the leaf. Additional loop cuts will help in adding more shape. I'll apply the scale of the leaf and apply smooth shading to this object. Now in edit mode, I'll rotate and move the leaf to get desired direction and pivot point in the right place. Additional vertices or loop cuts may be added if needed. After a few adjustments, I'm happy with the leaf 1. It would be nice to have more variations of leaves. So I'll duplicate existing leaf and build additional assets, like a combination of 3 leaves on a stem and another one with 2 leaves. Once I have all 3 assets ready, I've decided to increase stem size for all of them to avoid stiffness. Just need to make sure that I have all the pivot points at the bottom, otherwise I may have some overlapping. Additional changes to the scale or shape may be done later. I'll hide these assets and return to the tree nodes. After finding the best position in the viewport, I can finally start scattering the leaves. Same as previously, I'm going to create leaf instances on points of twig curves. I'll add instance on points node with twig curve plugged as points. I'll drag leaves collection in here and connect geometry into the instance socket. Again, to see the leaves on twigs, I have to join them with the rest of the geometry. And it's done. The leaves are on twigs. I'll select Separate Children and Reset Children options, as well as Pick Instance option to pick random object from the collection for each point. Now, since I have a 4-level hierarchy, it may be confusing to rotate instances at first, so I will spend some time adapting and testing rotation options. Once adapted, I've decided to add a map range node and set leaves rotation range on y-axis based on their position on the twig. And of course, convert this result value to radians with math node to set values in degrees. Now it's the matter of finding the best range. A range from -90 to 0 looks good to me. I can even randomize that range. I'll add a random value node and give it to select a random value between -90 and 60. And plug it into the min socket of a map range. The same thing I'm going to do with the 2 max value, but with a different random value range. Something like from -10 to 10. Now I want to rotate leaves around the twig. For this, I'm going to add another random value node with the values from 0 to 359, with conversion to radians, of course. Now I can play around with branches and twigs resolution as well as their probability and other settings to see how it all works together. Leaves even scale close to what I want when growing the tree. Speaking of which, I want to use captured attribute of the twig's curve factor to control the scale of leaves. And here's something interesting. I can add float curve with 3 points in it to make leaves that are in the middle of the twig with the highest scale. Leaves look a bit too small for this style of tree, so I'm going to rescale them slightly. Since I'm rescaling the source assets, I'll need to apply the scale. If anything needs correction or tweaking in the previously made nodes, I can easily do it in the nodes or from modifiers properties if that particular value is in there. Now the same thing as for the branches and twigs. I want to select the points where leaves will appear. For this, I'll reuse previously created group select points on curve, which I can either duplicate or find in the geometry nodes list. I want to add a tiny bit of chaos in the leaves rotation, so I'm also adding a random value node for the leaves rotation on the x-axis. From -90 to 90 looks more than enough. Now I want to organize the nodes by adding them to the frames and put values like leaves collection, selection or rotation options to the group input for easy access. Now it's time to work on materials to give this tree a nice stylized look. I'm going to create two different materials, one for the trunk, branches and twigs, called tree bark, and one for the leaves. And even when these materials assigned to this object, it doesn't mean that these materials are going to be applied to the geometry. I have to use set material node to apply material properly in geometry nodes. I'll do this for the joint geometry of trunk, branches and twigs. I'll set tree bark material here. For the leaves, I'm going to set leaves material. Now I'm going to the shading workspace layout. First thing I want to do is to add light to the scene. I'm going to change existing default light to sun with a strength of something around 5. I will also disable casting shadows for the sun to avoid artifacts since I'm going to build something close to cell shading material. Now I want to rotate the sun slightly to get light fall diagonally on the tree. The first material I'm going to build is tree bark, and it's going to be very simple. I will add shader to RGB node after principled BSDF, and this shader to RGB is only available in Eevee. I will add color ramp and change interpolation to constant. As you can see, with this setup, I've transformed object shading into colors defined by the color ramp. And when I change any of the values of principled BSDF, like roughness, it may be a different result. I will add 2 additional colors to the color ramp to have 4 in total and start building up color palette. I'll pick approximate colors starting from the darkest to the lightest. I really want to have tree bark colored with brown and bit of red and yellow maybe. Now what will give this material a good stylized tree bark look is noise texture. I will simply connect its vector into a base color and crank up the scale to a solid number, around 25 for now. With noise texture selected, I'll use Ctrl-T to add texture coordinate and mapping nodes. I'll drop X and Y scales to 0.1 and increase scale on Z-axis to 8. Also, I will tweak the scale of the noise texture. Now I can finish balancing the colors in the color ramp. When I'm finally happy with the tree bark material, I will switch to the leaves. And I will use same approach here, only with shades of green in the color ramp. I will also plug noise texture into the base color to create a smudgy look of the leaves. I will also play with the scale until I'm happy with the result. One more thing I can do is to put emission node in between the color ramp and material output, with the emission strength cranked up. To get that nice emission bloom, I'll enable bloom option in the rendering option right here. What I want to do is also to include material selection as group inputs in geometry nodes. I'll configure a background color since it's going to affect my shaders. So it is all about balance of light and colors. And that's about it for the procedural tree. There's lots of parameters to experiment with to configure interesting tree shapes. Like for example, the overall style of the tree will change dramatically if I replace leaves with cubes. So, as you can see, imagination is the only limit. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial series. I have published this entire project on itch.io for half of the cup of tea, so feel free to grab it there. Link in the description. If you have any questions, requests, or suggestions, put them in the comments below. So I'll see you in the next video and have a great time of the day. Bye bye.